How can vibrational sound therapy help realign us and also help bring deep healing in our lives? Stay tuned for this episode of Spirit Lift. Jennifer, can you please explain to our audience what is vibrational sound therapy, and just give some good examples where you've seen it really transform people's lives that you've worked with?
Sure. Basically, vibrational sound therapy is a really ancient modality. It's actually a healing modality. It's been around since the beginning of time, really. And what it is using different frequency sound and vibration to help heal the emotional and the physical body. So that can be instruments such as Tibetan bowls, crystal bowls, drumming, chanting, mantras, anything with the voice on and around the body to help induce deeper states of relaxation. And how have I seen it? Transform. Well, it really depends. I can talk about myself and how I've felt transformation in myself.
Yeah, let's talk about actually your own personal journey a little bit, because I've fortunately had the chance to speak to you and get to know you a little bit. And you're actually located in Arizona, a really beautiful state, and you came from high energy New York City, right? The Big Apple.
Right.
So let's speak to that whole sort of process and transformation. Why would you go from New York City and then go in the middle of the desert somewhere, in the middle of nowhere? Not literally.
I know.
Just Arizona.
I know. Make a long story short, I've been in Arizona for now about 3 years, a little over 3 years. And so I was living a life in New York that I think was getting really exhausting and tiring. I think my soul wanted something that I just really couldn't put a finger on. I was self-destructive in a lot of ways, doing a lot of partying, escaping. Not that I necessarily enjoyed this, but just escaping. And really in and out of depression, in and out of feelings of I need to be doing more. I don't know what it is. And then I have a woman in my life. Her name is Susan. She's sort of like a clairvoyant. She's somebody that I've spoken to for many, many years. And I reached a point in my life where I was considering leaving New York. And I didn't know where I wanted to go. I just desperately wanted to go. And Arizona had always been an option. My mother retired out here. I've had family out here. I've been familiar with Arizona since I'm about 11 years old. So never thought of it as a place to move. But anyway, so I needed clarity. So I had a phone session with her, and she generally starts out the session with a really nice healing prayer. She welcomes in the angels and all these things. It's a very spiritual, beautiful experience. But in this particular call, the first thing she said to me was, you need to get your tooth checked immediately. She said, there's something really profound is going to happen, but you need to do that like tomorrow. And I was like, that's odd. I don't have tooth pain. There's nothing going on. I don't know what she's talking about. So we continued the conversation and whatever. The next day I was at work, and at the time I was working in a spa on the Lower East Side, and it was probably mid-afternoon. I was probably shoveling down my lunch, trying to get back to the very fast-paced, work, and then I got a pain in the side of my mouth, and it progressively got worse, and my mind kept going back to the phone call, like, oh my God, she willed it on me or something, But by the end of that evening, my face had swelled out pretty bad. And I went to bed, like, I don't know why. The next morning I woke up and it was just out to here. It was horrible. It was an abscess. And I had already decided that I was going to get all of the metal removed from my mouth. I wanted to go to a holistic dentist. So when this happened, I said, okay, I need to go to a dentist immediately. I found a dentist, probably the only 100% holistic dentist, I think, in Manhattan. Her name is Dr. Brand, the Brand Wellness Center. And I went to her immediately with my face out like this. And she saw me. She said, absolutely not. You need an oral surgeon. You need it now. I don't do this type of work. So she sent me across town, and I had to have an emergency drainage of the abscess and all that. But after the procedure, the oral surgeon said to me, had you waited one more day, you would have fluid in the brain, and that could be fatal.
Holy
and
cow.
I was shocked.
Holy cow.
How did this? Yeah. I mean, my face was out to here. It was horrible, and very painful. And so he said, we can do the rest of the reconstructive work here. And I said, I think I want to go back to Dr. Brand. I don't know why. I just feel called to do that. He said, okay. He seemed a little shocked, but he said, okay. So I went back to Dr. Brand, and I told her about all the things that I wanted to get done, the metal removed from my mouth that I've had since I was a kid. I wanted a safe way to have the mercury removed. And, I did not want to have a traditional, like a root canal. I wanted a safer option. And I read that she did like ozone therapy and all these sort of safer ways to handle this dental work. But what ended up happening is she told me about how she healed herself. So she had suffered from chronic Lyme disease, I think for like 10 years of her life. And she was a person that sort of exhausted all of the clinical medical ways and turned to alternative therapies. And one of the things that she found was most powerful was sound therapy. And so she started to study it. And she found that her symptoms in Lyme were decreasing. She used things like, she studied binaural beats. She learned how to use tuning forks on herself. She enrolled in a lot of sound therapy courses. She bought a lot of bowls, all this, on and on and on. I had no idea this was going to go where it went, but she treated me with tuning forks after each session. So she would treat my face using tuning and frequency around salt foot baths, Tibetan bowls, chimes. In the process of healing, she told me one day, okay, I'm going to prescribe this to you. They are these binaural beats that every single day while my mouth was healing for 3 weeks until the next session. For anybody that's not familiar with binaural beats, there's 2 different frequencies played at once at the same time in like either side of your head. That's why it's good to wear with headphones. So with those 2 frequencies, what happens in the brain is, sorry if that's a little loud, is that it shifts brain waves. Binaural beats can actually shift your brain waves, and there's specific binaural beats that you can listen to that are for different things. So they can help speed up the healing process. So she told me in 3 weeks, you're going to listen to these binaural beats every single day until our next visit. So I didn't buy the headphones. I didn't do it. I was just like, okay, we seem to be on a good path. I don't think I really need to do this. So I come back 3 weeks later, and I sat down in her chair, and I swear to you, 10 seconds, she opened my mouth. She sat back. She said, you didn't do it. And I was like, what? She said, you did not do it. You're not listening to the binaural beats. I could tell. You're not healed the way you should be. And I could not believe that it was so instantaneous that she just knew. She saw it, and I'm like, she's like, I'm not kidding with you. Like I healed myself with this. And she basically told me in a nice but sort of motherly way, like, I'm not wasting my time. You either do this or you're not in it for the healing. And that really shook me. I'm like, nobody's ever spoken to me like that. Like, she really cares. There's that sense of compassion there. And so she basically sparked my interest. And from then on, I did. I listened to the binaural beats. I got the proper Beats headphones, and I just delved into the history of sound and frequency. And she really was a massive inspiration in my life. And I recently, I want to say 3 weeks ago, finally got to connect with her and tell her, where I am in my life. And as a result of what she taught me and what she showed me, and I'm forever grateful for that abscess tooth that led to her, that led to this. It's crazy.
Jennifer, it's quite a story, like how all these, one thing leads to another. Somebody that friend you were mentioning, clairvoyant, was that that was the term, right? Clairvoyant.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that person knew, go do this, and then that thing led to everything that transpired, with that doctor, and then knowing that you did introduce this, and now you don't even live in New York. Now you live in Arizona. Now you have a whole different life, like completely. So,
Yeah.
like, what is it that you have become to learn more about yourself and the work you do and the importance you think it has on each individual person that can really help transform their life doing the type of work you do?
To start, I think what delving into sound therapy did for me, and initially I never really thought long-term, like, oh, I'm going to become a vibrational sound therapy practitioner. Oh, I'm going to be doing sound baths. It was just like, I got to follow this somehow. And it starts, and usually I think for most practitioners in the healing world, it starts because you need healing. That's what it is. So when I say I was a self-destructive person, I always had a good heart. I was always a kind person. I always wanted to do my best, but was I self-destructive? Yes. Was I always searching for a spiritual path? Yes. Was I a reactive person? Yes, very. So working with sound enabled me to become extremely present in my own pain, which was really difficult. And to acknowledge the fact that I have these very early childhood wounds. I have some deep abandonment issues. And it was something that was a constant replay in my life. Once I started to really focus on that and want to heal it and become present with it and understand it, I could recognize it in other people. And I could recognize people almost from their trauma. I know that sounds weird, but I could see their trauma before I could really see them. But that also leads you to be more compassionate to people, because you're not simply reactive, like, oh, this guy's an a-hole or this person's acting like this. There's more behind that. Nobody's born, just hurting other people left and right, So it allowed for more compassion to other people and to myself. So once I could see how I could transform from a pack-a-day smoker to a heavy drinker to a reactive person that went out and partied, had no self-awareness, was just unconsciously living, if that's even living, right? If I can change and shift, oh my God, everybody can. We all can. We really can. And it takes patience and time with yourself. And I think I needed that year alone of being depressed in Arizona and being by myself to sort of to heal and to cleanse all of these wounds that I had, so that I could raise my own vibration, so that I could hold a space for other people in their healing. And I think that's true for everyone.
I'm really curious, Jennifer, like what through especially those early periods being in Arizona and where you are now, what are some things you've really learned about yourself and come to appreciate about who you are personally?
I don't think I ever really I don't think I really had self-love at all, which is, this is so sad, but I think I was always just had this, I carried this melancholy my whole life, and this deep sadness, and knowing the root of that changes everything. Does it change your trauma? Not necessarily, but it brings an awareness to it. So now you can say, okay, this is why I'm like this, or this is why I behave this way, or this is why my relationships panned out the way they did, or I chose the people that I did, or or situations would come into your life. You attract everything from where you're vibrating at. And that's the one thing I learned. I have nobody to blame but myself for everything I have literally attracted into my life. And it's because I was vibrating really low. I can say it. I was, low vibing. And I don't want to ever be in that space again. Even though the path to that was very difficult, the instruments that I use, like the crystal bowls, the Tibetan bowls, the chimes, all of that brought so much beauty into my life, just the sound of it, just at the purest level, playing with them, as music does for anyone. It brings a lot of joy, or arts or things like that. But so yeah, it was a time of sort of getting back to myself through these instruments, through using these instruments, being really present with myself in the uncomfortable moments, and allowing myself, to cry, to do whatever. So I learned to love myself, basically, what it is.
You know what's interesting? A book I always reference on Spirit Lift called Alma Cara. It's from an Irish poet. And the whole book essentially it's just every page is like candy. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like the words just come off the page.
Wow.
And touch something within you. I've never read anything like it in my life. And I read it once a year now. And it's about discovering yourself and discovering how special you are. And everything then stems from that. And that's what I think, if you really get to know yourself more in the way that you appreciate and that you cherish and that you find that works for you, everything falls after that. You'll have better relationships. Everything will look more beautiful in life. It's the inside out approach, right? Like you just really embracing that essence of what you are of existence, and then everything that entails will open the doors to everything amazingly in life, right? And nothing will bring you down. So what's interesting about your story is that, I mean, we all go through our own journeys to get to those realizations. So you went through just tireless amounts of just probably ups and downs, ebbs and flows, to really get where you are now. And then you can really help people in their own ways, because in the end, we got to help ourselves, right? As much as we try to be there for others and do things and be a catalyst, it's up to us to make those ultimate decisions to accept, if that makes sense. So I want to go deeper into your work. So can you describe to our viewers and people on the podcast as well, what is a normal session with you like, and what do you incorporate with the elements of your therapy when people are working with you? And what is, just put us in the room, and what is that experience like?
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of a mix. So if people are familiar with an actual sound bath, it's just, it's usually for a group of people, or one or two people, or a large group. And, you have the crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, and you're playing everything in unison, and it's making these beautiful tones and frequencies and a beautiful flow. And so I do kind of immerse people in sound. So I will usually have someone set up in a session where they're surrounded by crystal bowls, whether it's on a table or on the floor or somewhere, crystal bowls. I make sure that they're immersed in sound around them. And then I use the actual Tibetan bowls, which have that sort of beautiful, deep resonance. And they're heavy. So anything weighted on the body is promotes feelings of safety and protection, and using those on the body. So you're having vibrations surrounding the body and the auric field, and then you're having it on the actual physical body. So it's sort of this immersion. It is bathing in sound, right? And you drop into, usually what will happen probably within the first, I would say maybe 10 to 15 minutes, is you can drop into between a theta and a delta brainwave state, which is theta is that barely conscious level. That's sort of right after you wake up in the morning or right before you go to bed, super relaxed. And then some people, if they allow themselves to really surrender and let go, then they get into that delta wave, which is complete surrender. It's deep sleep. It's the place between theta and delta is the place you want to be for real deep healing. That's when healing can occur. And I always tell people that if you're not relaxed, this is not going to work. So there has to be some sense of letting go in any kind of healing work. But when you're on that table, you can't be focused on what instruments I have, because I use a lot of different sounds. And sometimes I'll see people trying to look, without just allowing, it to flow. So in any kind of healing work, if you're not relaxed, the body doesn't have a chance to heal at all. So my most important thing in a session for me is that a person relaxes. The sound will do what it needs to do. The vibrations will go where it needs to go, and the blockages in the body. And once you just allow and surrender, then the emotional stuff will come up, but it's got to come up to let it go, right? So that's kind of the goal of the session, really, is to get you into that state, and then the healing comes after, really.
I think it's really important what you're saying, by people having that ability to allow it to happen to them, right? Because I think in general, many things in life, the more we're just putting our energy and force and own volition into a situation that becomes a deterrent for actual, let's say, flow to happen, or happen for us or through us or whatever it is, like we just stop the good from coming, right? I just remember like this idea of flow. Remember what, because my wife and I, we lived in England a while ago, and we just had this amazing day one day. Like, it's just one of those days, like just magic happens, right? So we're getting ready during the day. We got up, and there was just some kind of bizarre event happening. Someone landed in a helicopter, and it was some like people from national team of England touching down, and then we went into town. We had a meal, and then we got like extra food brought to our table, and we're like, wow, we didn't order this. What do we do with it? And like, oh, go have it. Who cares? And then we go, and we went to enjoy the evening. We had some drinks, and then there were these kids like sitting over on the other side, and they had like all the champagne actually, and they said, hey, do you want one at bottom? Like, sure, whatever, So they gave us, it was just weird, and then we were leaving that night, and we were going to a bus stop, and it was raining, and people were running in front of us. And then we were passing this area, and my wife found like 50-pound note on the ground. And she's like, whose is this? And like, we're looking around, and it's just 50 pounds. I mean, it's just, the point is like, those days don't happen all the time, unfortunately. But there's this thing like when you allow like the moment, or as many moments throughout the day, to like just kind of flow in its own course and really trust and be open to it, I think a lot of great things can happen. I mean, I'm sure you see that more and more as your life has really changed now, living and through all the work you do. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And my favorite thing, I think, is to see people come into a session like the ones that I do at the Marriott. I remember a couple of weeks back, it was a really, really rainy morning, and my sessions are 7:30 in the morning. I do pretty early, like first class of the day. And I remember it was pouring rain, thunder, and I had about 5 people in my class. And then at the very last minute, 2 women showed up, and I could just see the annoyance in their face. And both of them were like, we're only here because we got rained out. There's nothing else to do. And like, that was the energy that came, into the room. So right away I was like, then I'm super grateful for the rain, that you're here. Because I knew, I'm like, see, and the greatest feeling is going to be those 2 people walking out of here completely transformed. And it brings me joy to know that will happen. Like, I don't even get upset about the animosity or the attitude or anything like that, because you don't know what happens before they enter your presence. You don't know what's going on in their life. But after that session was over, they both looked like they just were like in another world. Yeah. And they didn't expect that. But the beautiful thing was they just allowed it. They just allowed, and they sat there, and they were, those 2 women in particular. When I do sound baths, like I'll walk around the room with different instruments. And one of my favorite things to see is people in a full state of surrender. So there's relaxation. There's people that are a bit uptight that won't relax, and those people just, it is what it is. It's going to take time. You can't force that. And then there are people that surrender, and it usually looks like, I would say, like heart opening. So like arms out, heart open, legs out, that makes me that brings me such joy, because that person is in full surrender. That is very vulnerable to be in that kind of a state. And it brings me joy because I wish people could see how peaceful and beautiful they look in that state. And there's nothing to fear about being vulnerable and open. And it's actually beautiful for me. It's part of the reason why I love to walk around. Now, I don't want people to think that I'm like being creepy and staring at them, but it's different. It's actually really beautiful.
No, absolutely. And, some days I just think, depending on what's going on that day or that week or something, and I'm actually having a pretty good week, sometimes I just think to myself, it's so dumb to live in fear, just almost conceptually it's dumb because, and I'm not trying to minimize people's issues or problems or anything like that. But the reason I say that is because, again, a lot of what we experience in life really comes down to our perception of every single thing we do. And if I wake up and just really, really focus on knowing that I have running water, I have food in the fridge, I have lights that turn on, we have security at our building, et cetera, and then knowing that other people's lives really have maybe not even a toilet or actual drinking water, got to put things in perception sometimes. And then I like what you say about these people that just go there, and then if they're willing and wanting and desiring and just generally go and just be free, they just transform their own lives. And do people come with trauma and emotional despair and hey, I need to do this to really, really turn my circumstances in life around? Are they coming to you with those sort of needs, you would say?
Yeah, I think at both ends of the spectrum. I have people that are I don't really know what you do, I don't really get it, but I know that I need help. I'm a mess, I'm stressed, I'm this, I'm that, I'm anxious. I just really need to relax. I get those people. And then I get the other people yeah, I'll try this out. Yeah, it sounds interesting. But either way, you wouldn't be coming to me if you're not searching for some kind of peace, right? If you're not searching for some kind of healing, no matter how desperately you need it or how, whatever your situation is, I feel like people show up because they need to show up. There's a need for that in their life. So, and you're seeing it more and more now. And that's the beauty about healers and people in the arts and people now, they finally have their platform, right? I feel like for so many years, artists, creatives, healers were sort of here, no one really took them seriously. Oh, it's not a real job. You know what I mean? But now the tables have really turned and the corporate world is sort of going like this. And then the creatives and the artists and the healers are becoming center stage because it's what's needed. Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful shift that's happening in the world. And that's another reason why I don't subscribe to the fear. I don't subscribe to anything going on in that too, right? Because I know there's so much light in the world and we can transform that. That's why these things have to continue. That's why, continue to be creative, continue to stay in a place of, gratitude and look at the positive and, all of that. You just cannot get caught up in this because fear is a virus, Well,
it is a virus. And let's go to what you just touched on right now, gratitude. How important is that energy of vibration of gratitude?
It's everything. I could not do the work that I do if I'm not in gratitude and coming from my heart. It's a domino effect, you have to be grateful for everything. I'm grateful for every person that comes to me wanting to help because I'm proud of them, whether I know them or not. I'm proud of them for even taking the step, and that's the thing. You can't push people to take that step. They have to get to the point where they're okay, I need this, And then, I usually try to always tell people that come to see me or that come to Sound Bath how grateful I am. that they're there, and that they should show themselves that same amount of gratitude just for being here. You know, you're here with me on a Friday night doing a sound bath with sound therapy, as opposed to, you know, at a bar, knocking back 6 beers, talking to people, probably starting a fight, or who knows, you know, whatever.
Or you should create your own Friday nights like that with sound bath and beer and see what happens, right?
That's true. I mean, I do like beer. Yeah.
I don't know if those two things go together, but you know,
they can. It's all about the vibration in the environment. Like, you know, you can even, it's using alchemy, and alchemy is so present in vibration and sound too. Like, if you're in a negative environment with people arguing around you and you're drinking, right? Yeah, I mean, that's probably going to rub off, and you're probably going to end up participating in that argument, or you're probably going to take some of that energy, that angry energy in. But if you're at my sound bath and we're having some wine and the energy is right, you can alchemize that alcohol into something, you know, great and fun, and, you know.
Well, I think of that analogy like when going to a rock, like for me, going to a rock show, like, because I like rock music. So when you're in an environment with 80,000 plus people, and they're, you know, people are having their drink and whatever, and then they're singing the songs they love, that energy with 80,000 plus people, I mean, that's like it from another dimension or something, you know?
Yeah, euphoric.
It's just and it can last for many days. It's just incredible. And I'm curious, Jennifer, with the work you do, also, do people, let's say, have you seen in certain circumstances people have addictions, maybe like smoking or certain OCD issues, maybe, or other things, when they come to and maybe go through those sessions with you and come more regularly? Have you seen any cases where people will start to change certain habits that they may have, especially if it's related to addictions?
Yeah, I can definitely see it with people that have confided in me that they're really heavy drinkers, and that drink from a negative place, sort of like drink to get drunk, not in a celebratory way, because we can do things that are maybe not so great for us, but if we're doing them in a celebratory way, you know, again, that alchemy, you're shifting the vibration, changing things a little bit, but it's consistency too. So like, if you're coming to me in a session, right, on a Friday night when you would typically be going out and getting trashed, right, and you're coming to me and we're having a session, and you can actually experience a theta delta brain state, which you can't, by the way, if you're wasted drunk and pass out. You can't. It's a different type of, you know, pass out. So if they're feeling that, and they can experience how good that feels and how calm their body feels, it takes consistency. And over time, you know, you make a choice. Do I want that splitting headache and that anger, or do I want this relaxed state, you know? And then, you know, I don't know that anybody that's completely quit a bad habit, but have able to pull back and have more awareness of what they do. Definitely, yeah. Because it's again, you have to feel it to experience it. Once you experience that, you can feel better, and like, wow, you know, this feels so much better in my body. Like the example I said to you earlier, once I started studying sound and vibration and frequency and all of that, there's certain types of music that I just can't listen to anymore. If it has real negative tone, if it's degrading to women, if it's violent, if it's angry, I don't want it in my ears or in my body. So it shifts you. And when you hear it now, after hearing crystal bowls and, you know, being bathed in these sounds all the times, I'm just averted from it. You know, it's almost automatic. You just don't want it near you anymore.
You know, I think if people really go through those sessions with you and they really start to really have that shift of that energy and really keep that vibration up, they're gonna really attract maybe the more beneficial things that they would really desire in their life, you know, from the get-go, and also just weed out the things that really shouldn't belong there at the same time. And this is the last thing I wanted to ask you, Jennifer, and I kind of want to end it with this within that same framework, is why now more than ever would want to seek out like this type of work that you can offer to them, and really, I just kind of open them up to a whole different reality from what they may have known or experienced before, that can be so incredibly positive. Why is now more than ever the work you do so important?
Well, the state of the world. I mean, I think in the last few years, 10 or more, there's been a real shift from pharmaceuticals to holistic wellness. I think people are becoming more open to like holistic ways or alternative ways. I don't like to necessarily label it alternative, because these modalities have been around way longer than us, this generation has. But I think now more than ever, because of the state of the world. I mean, we're in a state where we're just, the collective has been vibrating in this fear state for far too long. And people, what we've seen in the past year is higher rates of depression, anxiety, stress, suicide, abuse. I mean, the list goes on, and that's a direct result of what's going on in the world. And it's a direct result of the panic and fear that people are constantly in. You know, fear is an emotion that helps us. Fear is a frequency that can help us, right? It makes us more alert when we're fearful, right? So like in a time where, say you're walking down a dark alley and you get a little bit nervous, and you may, like if you've ever had your headphones on and you're a dark alley at the middle of the night, and you all of a sudden you get fearful. The good thing about fear is that it's like an alert system for your body. So what you'll do, maybe you'll take off your headphones, you'll turn off your music, and you'll become more alert and aware. And that actually will help you. But you shouldn't live in that state, because that constant state of fight and flight, it's only going to, it's a constant shock to your system. You cannot vibrate on this level all the time. It's going to cause upheaval. You know, it's going to cause, and I think what's happening now after a year of this, people are tired. People are really sick and tired of feeling this way. They want to feel better. They want to feel a sense of peace. Peace seems so far away, you know? So aside from shutting off your TV entirely, and being out in nature and enjoying this beautiful world that we have, that we live in, you know, they're seeking out ways like sound healing, like meditation. More people are jumping into meditation this year than I have ever seen in my entire life. And that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Meditation, yoga, breath work, sound healing. These are the things that I think are like necessities to health. These are like the pillars of health. Forget what they taught you, you know, growing up in school. This is how we align. This is how we get back to our natural state of balance and being. And using all of these modalities, not just sound healing, but all of these in conjunction will raise your frequency. And a lot of times they're free. Just look like me with my sound baths on Friday, free. You know, we have yoga practitioners, we have Qigong practitioners, we have this beautiful community. So it's there, you know. And it's beautiful. I see it with my own eyes every single Friday. More people that are interested, more people that are coming, and that gives me hope. And we got to just keep raising our frequency. We got to just keep investing in ourselves. Stop with the focus outward. There's nothing you can do to change this. Change this, and that will change. You know, domino effect with everything. It's how frequency works. Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing to end on, because it's, again, like, you can only control, and you ultimately we will only control with what's going on inside of you. And it's like there's so much to be desired and sought after and embraced and just cherished more than anything. Just really, really getting to know yourself and really loving yourself, you know. It's just, and I think once you do that, just the whole landscape of life will change for you, and you'll just live in a way so incredibly unstoppable, you could say. And Jennifer, where can more people, our viewers and listeners and podcasts, where can they like follow you, find out more about you, if they're ever in your area in Arizona, like, go through these incredible sessions with you, where can they find out more about you?
My social media, I have my Instagram, which is JB Vibes. That's my business name. So JB Vibes, I post everything that I'm doing there within the community. Like I said, I do the sound meditations at the Marriott in Scottsdale. That is primarily for the guests, but I do that 4 times a week. But then 2 to 3 times a month, I do community sound baths out of a place called Rising Phoenix Spiritualist Church, which is in downtown Phoenix. And it's just a beautiful healing space. They offer a lot of different healing modalities there. And I do community sound baths there as well. And then Tempe Town Lake, if anybody's familiar with Tempe or the surrounding areas, it's a beautiful park and lake. It's located sort of in the center of downtown Tempe. And that's where we do the free community sound baths. And that's every single Friday. So, but I post everything on my Instagram.
Perfect. Well, for all of our listeners, viewers, we're going to include all Jennifer's information in the description box and the pinned comments and the show notes and on all platforms, so you'll be able to connect with her very easily and follow her, please. And, get out there to Arizona. Not only will you have an incredible experience going through these sessions with Jennifer, but the state is beautiful and there's a lot to be explored there for sure. Just don't go in the middle of I don't know what month it is, but whenever the dead heat is, really driving you crazy. But go to
nice now.
Right now, yeah. So go now, everyone. So Jennifer, thank you so much for being on this episode of Spirit Lift. I think it's really incredible the work you do and the just ever important awareness we need to bring to these, sort of therapies and ways of just really learning more how to transform our lives in a very positive way. So I really thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Devin. No, this was a really great conversation, and I appreciate what you do and having this platform for people to sort of share their light work and their healing with the world.
No, thank you so much, Jennifer, and we really appreciate your time today, and it's been such an honor, and we really appreciate everything you do. And for all of our viewers and listeners on the platforms of podcasts. Sorry, I'm jumbling my words there, as I do sometimes at the end.
Okay.
We thank you all so much, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone.